With the obsession with the race for the White House, we tend to forget important debates are happening much closer to home, like on Beacon Hill. Here to discuss are Hannah Kane, Republican State Representative from Shrewsbury. Representative, it's good to see you.
Thank you.
Chris Dempsey, co-chair of No Boston Olympics. Chris, good to see you too. Drugs and transportation, those are the topics tonight. There seems to be an Olympics of bipartisan congratulations on this opioid bill that passed in the House. Is it deserved, or is it more rhetoric than impact?
No, it's not rhetoric at all, and it just actually passed the Senate unanimously this afternoon as well. No, there are a lot of provisions in there. The first and foremost, that we're now limiting 7-day prescription for first-time opiate use. That's going to take an enormous amount of pills out of the system, and that's
Governor
one of the
wanted 3
challenges.
days, and he said we need real disruption to do this.
He said 3 days, but that was sort of his opening volley. At the end of the day, what he wanted to do was not have 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and so he's very happy with this outcome. But there are a lot of great things in there that weren't in there before, ensuring that every doctor is checking the prescriber network and making sure that this patient coming forward isn't getting it from someplace else. That's a very important tool that needs to be.
There's very few issues where everybody seems to agree they need to be addressed. In this state, opioids is clearly one of them. From an outsider's look, did they address this head on? Again, I love Baker's line. We got to be disruptive when it comes to an issue. Were they disruptive?
I think so. There's a lot in there. I mean, there's provision after provision after provision that is going to make a difference. This is an issue that has touched everyone in Massachusetts. It's about 100 people a month. Our friends and neighbors that are dying.
4 people a day. Yeah.
100 people a month. This is not going to solve everything, and I don't think we should think that any piece of legislation will, but it is a step in the right direction.
Staying with unanimity, since you just mentioned unanimous votes, there's virtual unanimity from the whole political infrastructure and the law enforcement community. I know you're part of this because that's where we met, that this marijuana legalization thing is a horrible idea. Is that on substance, or is this just another example of politics and abject fear and denial in light of the fact, this has happened twice before. Whole infrastructure against decriminalization, people pass it 2-1. Whole infrastructure, or most of it, against medical marijuana, it passes 2-1. Isn't this going to be deja vu all over again because you guys have your heads in the sand?
First of all, I don't think my head is in the sand on this issue. I actually think the way that I look at it is the way that a lot of legislators on Beacon Hill are looking at it, from a very pragmatic perspective.
What's that?
You know, it's one where we have to understand we don't have a full understanding of the impact on marijuana from a science perspective in terms of brain development. Very important. Number two, you know, the tax amount that has been put into the ballot initiative, so it's the sales tax plus 3.75 excise tax, that is not going to begin to cover the cost of having to put a regulatory system into place to deal with this.
Raise it.
Well, the ballot issue has it in there.
Well, you can amend it. It's a
level.
law. You guys have already talked about amending it. Should it become law? This committee that came out of the Senate said we're going to do X, Y, and Z. Should the voters adopt it? So why not fix what's wrong with it?
I think those are issues in it. Fixing one issue of that ballot initiative is not going to make me want to legalize marijuana.
Are there heads in the, I mean, 8 out of 8 senators who went to Colorado, one of them sat here and said, I was really in favor of it. I go there, I come home. It's a horrible idea.
Yeah.
Are there heads in the sand, or is she right on the merits?
Well, she's right to have concerns. I do think that the electorate is probably a little bit ahead of the legislature on this one. I think it will pass. And then I hope that the legislature steps in and fixes some of the things that might be wrong with the bill. Let's move it in the right direction, but make sure we're doing it in a sensible way.
Again, this is a choice. This is a choice being put on us by an industry that sees Massachusetts as this next East Coast stronghold. We don't need to do this right now. We can take our time and figure out if this is really the direction that we want to go in Massachusetts.
We don't need to have alcohol either, which is more dangerous. Would you not agree? We have alcohol.
And what you see in Colorado and Washington is that actually alcohol use goes up as marijuana use goes up.
Can we talk transportation for a minute? I remember when, during the Olympics thing, remember we get the Olympics, the T is going to be fixed. We don't have an Olympics. And there's a big fare hike. I don't want to talk about the fare hike because it is what it is. It is done. Starting with you for a second, the fare hike covers 1/140th, less than 1% of the cost, the actual cost of the backlog and repair maintenance. Is there any way this mess can be fixed without a tax increase? Forget the fares, a tax increase.
Well, I don't think so. I think that we should be looking at broad-based revenue to fund things like the MBTA and our roads and bridges. The MBTA fare increase, I know you don't want to talk about it, but if we had raised the gas tax by 2 cents, we wouldn't have had to have a fare increase. What's the message that we're sending to people around the Commonwealth?
You should go on your drive as opposed to take mass transportation.
And so when you're stuck in, even if you never ride the T, if you're stuck in traffic, you should know the person in front of you is having a subsidized trip. The person in front of that person is a subsidized trip. That's slowing you down because we're not encouraging those people to get off the road and get on the T.
Representative, even if you were someone who believes we should keep taxes low, as a practical matter, how do we fill a $7 billion repair hole, multi-billion-dollar debt service, if at some point we don't go honestly to the voters and say, we need new taxes to keep this converted from a third world subway, a T system, to a first world?
Well, I think first of all, on the gas tax issue, I think what most people rejected was this notion that in perpetuity it's just going to keep going and increasing. I don't think per se.
On the ballot they voted against
Yes,
that,
I
right?
really think that it's not coming back and having an open and honest conversation from time to time about what are the needs. I have full faith that the Fiscal Management Control Board, who's doing an excellent job, is going to sort out what is going to need to be done and will come forward with a proposal along with MassDOT, the Secretary of Transportation, and the Governor at some point and say, we have done what we believe we can do. Here's the conversation that we need to have.
So you're
I
saying
don't
almost
think we're
what the
there yet.
speaker, the Democratic speaker, said right there the other night, which is let's fix what we can fix first, do the fares, but you're not saying no to taxes, just no to taxes now.
What I'm saying is I don't think that we have the information that we need to make a fully informed decision. I always believe it's reform before revenue. And I agree that the fare increase that we had, I mean, part of what they're trying to do is when you look across other transportation networks, you typically have about 40% of your costs coming from fares. We're at 31%. So they're trying to, again, look at what needs to be done holistically and start to make those changes.
Only 30 seconds left. The House voted to new regulations on ride sharing, not including fingerprinting. Law enforcement, which actually knows about public security, says we need fingerprinting. Legislators who have virtually no experience with public security say we don't need fingerprinting. Why should we trust you and not them?
Well, the governor, when he filed this bill, did not have fingerprinting in it, and when it came out of financial services, did not have fingerprinting in it. There was an amendment that was put forward yesterday. It actually it got pulled. It didn't get voted on. I mean, at this point, we voted on the bill that we had in front of us. There was some discussion on whether or not there were some things in there that people didn't like, and I understand that. But on merit, on whole, I think it was an important bill for us.
10 seconds. Should there be fingerprinting?
No, I think the legislature is trailing on this issue, and we need to see more leadership to say technology is changing the game here. We don't need to go back to the old ways.
An innovation economy kind of guy. Representative, it's great to see you.
Thank
Chris,
you.
great to see you
Thanks,
as well.
Jim.